At dinner, if it was
Wow.
on your plate, you were going to eat it. Complaints about taste didn't matter because food wasn't wasted. It all had to be finished before you could leave the table.
Wow.
Parents didn't sugarcoat it either, often reminding you that there were starving kids in Africa. Looking back, sometimes flavor was secondary.
My parents did the same thing, and they're actually from Africa. Today on Gen Z Brit, born in the 2000s, a very curious man is going to be checking out signs you grew up poor in the 1970s and 80s. Because I feel like in every generation, there's always signs. Like you can tell which kids had the more affluent parents and which ones didn't have it as much. There were signs. So yeah, I guess I'm going to see what it was like for the 70s and 80s. And of course, I'd love to know what you guys have to say about this, how you resonate with it, and whether you agree or disagree with some of these signs that are going to be shown in this video. But guys, of course, with that being said, let's just jump on into this one and see what it's all about.
Most people who grew up poor in the 1970s didn't know what they were missing, and they assumed everyone lived the very same way. Back then, stretching $1 was an art form, with creative and sometimes funny solutions for being short on cash. Looking back, it's easy to see the struggle, but it's just as easy to smile as you think back on your own childhood. In a lot of homes, the TV's channel knob broke off at some point and never got replaced. Instead of buying a new TV set or calling for a repairman, families just grabbed a pair of pliers and kept them on top of the TV as a permanent solution.
Wow.
Turning the dial became a careful operation, especially if the picture was fuzzy or the sound dropped out. Everyone in the house learned how to use the pliers just right, clicking through the channels slowly, hoping to land on one that came in clear.
Yeah, okay. See, even when I look back at these kinds of block TVs, which I've never experienced in real life, I even forgot, the dials could come off. It's like a microwave with these TVs, isn't it? Like if the dial comes off the microwave, it's like, how are you going to twist it? How are you going to change the timer? But back then, signal is important, right? Like you got to get the right fine-tuned one. Look, I'll be so curious to see if any of you guys had that problem. I wasn't expecting to see this one.
Turning the dial became a careful operation, especially if the picture was fuzzy or the sound dropped out. Everyone in the house learned how to use the pliers just right, clicking through the channels slowly, hoping to land on one that came in clear.
Wow.
Buying bread from the day-old shelf was common in families trying to stretch $1. It was usually just slightly less soft than the fresh loaves, but perfectly fine for toast or sandwiches. If the store had name-brand bread marked down, that was considered a lucky find. No one really thought of it as less than. It was just a practical way to keep the pantry stocked without spending extra.
Day-old bread, okay.
Writing a check before payday wasn't reckless, it was strategy. Parents would keep a close eye on what day they got paid, and time the check accordingly, knowing it would take a day or two before the bank processed it. Grocery shopping often came with quiet calculation of what would clear and when. It was just one of those everyday ways people made things work when money was tight.
Serious stuff, yeah.
Shoes from Payless.
Back then as well, checks were the way you guys were getting your payments, right? I'm still trying to figure out how they work to this day. I just need to sit down and do a video, do like a proper deep dive into how checks actually work, because to this day I've not came in a scenario where I've ever had to use it, so that's why I'm not too familiar. But it does seem like there was techniques to it. Yeah, you gotta make sure you check it, you write it early, so that when it comes through, wow, okay, I see how that could be a sign.
Money was tight.
Interesting.
Shoes from Payless, Kinney, or even Kmart were a staple in many households, especially for growing kids. Most kids had 2 pairs, one good pair for special occasions and a worn-out pair for everyday use. The good pair had to last, sometimes through an entire school year, and they were only worn when absolutely necessary. The old pair, even if it had holes or thinning soles, stayed in rotation as long as it could hold up.
Serious. I feel like even
Wearing
today is
patched
similar.
clothing wasn't anything unusual. When jeans or skirts wore thin or ripped, especially at the knees, parents would sew on a patch instead of tossing them out. Iron-on patches were popular, but sometimes they were stitched on by hand with whatever fabric or thread was around. Clothes were handed down, worn out, patched, and worn again. It wasn't about fashion. It was about keeping things going as long as possible.
Wow, you had to really make the most of what you had.
It wasn't uncommon for a family car to have trouble starting, especially if it was an older model. If the battery was weak or the starter wasn't working.
By the way, I love these cars. Like with the wheels, the rims on it like that. I don't know. Why do they not have the white thing on cars nowadays? I like the look. Or could you customize your car to look like that? You probably could nowadays. But I love that whole look of the wheels back in it. They look way cooler.
Pushing the car to get it rolling and then popping the clutch was the go-to method. One person would sit in the driver's seat, while others gave it a push until the engine caught. It was frustrating at times, but it was just another part of daily life when you didn't have the money for repairs.
Wow, serious stuff.
Government assistance programs provided things like large blocks of processed cheese and powdered milk to help families get by. The cheese worked great for sandwiches or even cooking. Powdered milk was mixed with water and stored in the fridge, though it didn't taste much like the real thing. These foods weren't fancy, but they helped stretch the grocery budgets during tough times.
Oh, this is deep.
When birthdays or holidays rolled around, many families got creative with wrapping paper. Instead of buying expensive gift wrap, they used the comic section of the newspaper or cut up brown paper grocery bags.
Wow.
The results were simple, but they did the job just fine. Sometimes kids even decorated the plain bags with drawings to make them feel more special.
You gotta be creative.
Bologna sandwiches were a lunchbox regular for kids in the 70s, served on plain white bread, maybe with a slice of cheese or a dab of mustard. They were quick, cheap, and filling. Some families fried the bologna in a pan to give it extra flavor. It wasn't gourmet, but it was what many kids grew up eating day after day, and most didn't think twice about it.
Yeah, and you know what? That does taste nice though, but I hear it's just like a quick kind of cheap meal that you can get yourself to eat. Do you know what? I feel like everybody's got like one of those meals, unless you're well off. Like I have one of those meals. My meal, always go for the sandwiches. My go-to is like a sandwich. And then eggs these days are getting expensive. Like, everything's getting expensive, bro. What the heck? What I would do is I would put butter on the toast and then I warm the butter in the microwave for like 30 seconds. And then when I've taken it out now, it's all melted into the bread. And then it's kind of like this dessert, kind of warm dessert thing in the mouth. It tastes nice, you know. Listen, that is like my broke meal right there. When I need something quick, that's what I'm doing, and it works, man. You guys let me know if you had any similar meals. If in dark times, you just gotta get you through. That's what I would do.
Kids often found small ways to earn money, whether by collecting glass bottles for the deposit refund, delivering newspapers before school, or babysitting neighborhood kids. These jobs taught responsibility early and gave kids a little spending money of their own. It was normal to start helping out financially in small ways, even before you were old enough to get a real job.
Yeah, different times, man.
During the winter, bread bags served as makeshift waterproof liners for boots. If your shoes had holes or weren't insulated, you could slip a bread bag over your socks to help keep your feet dry. Some people even put them over their boots. They were held in place with rubber bands or tucked into pant legs. It wasn't the most comfortable setup, but it was what families used when buying new boots wasn't an option.
No, that is serious stuff.
When the school book fair flyer came home, kids would grab a pencil and start circling all the books they hoped to get. Often there wasn't money to buy anything, but it was still fun to dream. Sometimes you'd get a few dollars from your parents to pick out a cheap book or bookmark. Even without buying anything, the book fair was still something to look forward to.
Crazy stuff, man.
If you showed up at school without lunch money or a packed meal, the school would give you a plain peanut butter sandwich. It was dry, basic, and came with a carton of milk if you were lucky. It wasn't something kids looked forward to, but it was better than going hungry. Most kids who had to eat it didn't complain. They just ate quietly and moved on with their day.
I'm so curious to see if you guys kind of had like any of you guys that grew up during this time had like a similar thing where if you were one of those kids that had to eat the food from the school, you were kind of seen as like uncool. You know, I know that sounds like silly, but you know, I feel like, because I know even when I was growing up, like we knew, like, you would know, you wouldn't want to be the kid eating off the schools whatever they provided. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't be a good look with the popular kids. If you get what I'm trying to say. I wonder if there was a similar thing back then. You guys let me know. But that is tough though.
In many homes, the thermostat was strictly off limits to kids. If it was cold, you were told to wear a sweater. If it was too hot, you opened a window, but not for long. Leaving a door open, even for a few seconds, was sure to get a sharp reminder from a parent, trying to keep heating and cooling bills low. These rules weren't meant to be mean, they were just practical. At the start of the school year, teachers often asked kids to write about their summer vacations. For those who hadn't gone anywhere, it meant finding ways to make the ordinary sound exciting. Playing outside, going to the city pool, or visiting the cousins became the highlights. You didn't realize until later that some kids went on big trips. You just figured everyone's summer looked like yours.
Oh, that's serious. And the trips is another thing as well, because even during this time, it wasn't like flights, like people were just taking flights regularly like they are now. So and this is in the US, so I can imagine a lot of people could do a lot with road trips. You know, I thought even then, wasn't that like the main way of kind of doing your holiday stuff? Like, you weren't expecting to go outside of the US or go to a whole nother state, or maybe you would, but then you wouldn't mind driving. Like, so that's interesting. I feel like nowadays this is something that hits a lot deeper, because when you get kids talking about they went, especially in the UK, like with the European countries, kids talking about they went to Spain, France, this, that, and you're thinking, wow, okay, you might be all right. Whereas there's kids that have never left the country here, and in Europe that's more of a big deal, because it's expected that everybody has a passport, and that if you haven't gone out at least to France, which is a quick train from the UK, it's like people might look at you type of way. But it's mad as well. This actually doesn't seem too different to what I was growing up. This is just like the similar thing, but just, you know, with 70s and 80s technology and norms.
You didn't realize until later that some kids went on big trips. You just figured everyone's summer looked like yours. If you grew up in the 80s, it may have taken you a while to figure out that your family struggled financially. Everything just seemed normal, right up until you discovered other people had way nicer things than you. If your family went to the movies, chances are it wasn't opening weekend at the big theater. It was the $1 show a few months later.
Wow.
These second-run theaters were usually a little run down, with sticky floors, faded posters, and seats that squeaked every time someone shifted. Popcorn was often stale, but that didn't matter. You were just excited to see a movie on the big screen. While other kids bragged about catching Ghostbusters on day one, you knew you'd get your chance weeks later, at a theater that was a bit more run down than the movie theaters at the mall.
No way. Okay, this is a whole different side to the 70s and 80s I never knew about. Like, I would hear about the malls, and then, you know, you go into the movies, and then the lines being long when it's like the movies just dropped. But I didn't realize there was a whole other side of it, where if you couldn't afford to do that, you can go to like the other places where you can watch it months later. And you don't even have online stuff back in the day. Because now because you know, there's ways you can watch movies. I don't want to say it, but there's ways you can watch movies without paying. And people won't know. But back then, it's kind of like, you can't really hide that. Eesh. Like, people will know you're going there. Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal though. You guys let me know. But I didn't even know that was a thing.
Dinner time had a different feel when money was tight, especially when it came to hot dogs. Instead of buns, Mom just pulled out a stack of Wonder Bread. The hot dogs would usually split right through the flimsy bread, leaving mustard and ketchup dripping onto your hands, but it was still delicious. It was one of those substitutions that made sense, since you already had a loaf on the counter, so there was no need to spend extra on the pricey buns. It may have been at birthday parties or neighborhood barbecues that you discovered real buns existed, but at home, hot dogs on plain white bread was how it was done.
That's not that. Hot dogs and white bread is basically the same thing.
In the 80s, having cable at all was a luxury.
Like, if it's on, like, yeah, you can, like, yeah, I hear it. Like, you know, it's not the traditional burger bun, but I mean the hot dog bun. But no, like, I don't think you would have been really missing out with this one. But what do you guys think? You let me know.
In the 80s, having cable at all was a luxury, but families who struggled stuck with over-the-air TV channels, and at the very most, they paid for just basic cable, which meant only a dozen channels or so. There was no MTV, no Nickelodeon, and definitely no HBO. While your friends stayed up watching music videos and movies with no commercials, you were tuning into reruns with bad reception. But you learned to make the most of it, and it was always a treat to stay over at a friend's house who had the ever-expanding channel lineup that cable TV had to offer.
I didn't even realize this either, yeah.
For families without credit cards or spare cash, layaway was the only way Christmas morning looked like Christmas. Parents would pick out toys at Kmart or Sears, pay a few dollars each week, and hope they had it covered before December 24th. As a kid, you might have spotted a gift weeks earlier in the store, only to wonder if it would ever actually make it under the tree. There were no giant piles of presents that crossed off everything on your Christmas list, but rather a few carefully chosen presents that made Christmas still feel special.
And Christmas is a deep one. Even when I was growing up, like all the kids wanted to know who got what for Christmas, and if you didn't get like the cool gift, yeah, like you were a bit like reserved, like you didn't want to talk too much. It's like finding out you were the only one that failed in a test. It's like, ooh, okay, I don't know if I want to say my what I got this time around. So yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if you guys had a similar thing back in the day. Like I'm so curious to see what the school dynamic would have been for kids growing up during this time.
That crossed off everything on your Christmas list, but rather a few carefully chosen presents that made Christmas still feel special. By the mid-1980s, every kid wanted the newest freestyle bike with bright colors and stunt pegs. If you were still pedaling a beat-up BMX from years earlier, it showed. The seat was probably torn, the frame dull, and the stickers were peeling, while all the cool kids zipped around on shiny new Haros or GTs.
Wow.
This meant you couldn't try any new tricks, so you were just left cruising around while others showed off. Still, that old bike was your ticket to freedom, and on any given day, it took you where you wanted to go.
And bikes were a big deal back in the day.
When you opened the kitchen cabinet in a poor household, you didn't find a neat, matching set of glassware. Instead, there was a hodgepodge of Burger King Star Wars cups, Garfield mugs from McDonald's, or maybe an old ET glass from Pizza Hut. All of them were different, making it look more like a collection of prizes than a proper kitchen set. Friends might laugh, but those cups had stories, and you knew exactly which one was yours when it came time for dinner.
Okay, so they gave out cups, like more glass cups from these stores back in the day, fast food restaurants as well. Wow, okay, that's different.
They knew exactly which one was yours when it came time for dinner.
Wow, using that as
Gum wasn't something that moms took lightly in the 1980s. If she had a pack of juicy fruit, it wasn't unusual for her to split a stick in half, or even thirds if siblings were around. On special occasions, you might get a whole pack of Hubba Bubba or Bubble Yum, but most of the time you had to stretch a piece of gum as far as it would go. The fights were usually over who got the bigger half, but the memories of tearing a stick of gum in half instantly make you think of your mother and her attempt to be frugal. At dinner, if it was on your plate, you were going to eat it. Complaints about taste didn't matter, because food wasn't wasted. It didn't matter if it was a cheap cut of meat, canned whatever, or casseroles made with whatever there was. It all had to be finished before you could leave the table.
Wow.
Parents didn't sugarcoat it either, often reminding you that there were starving kids in Africa. Looking back, sometimes flavor was secondary to survival.
No, my parents did the same thing, and they're actually from Africa, which is what's funny to me because, like, I thought that line was only used like more recently, but I wouldn't be surprised if they got that from their parents. Like, there's starving kids in Africa that will be eating, not the starving kids in Africa line. Like, yeah, when that line was popped, the amount of guilt that has just now been bestowed on you is insane. It's just, you just can't handle it. You just gotta give in. Like, you just have to eat the peas. You have to now. But no, that's actually funny. But no, but at the same time, yeah, I can actually relate to this quite a lot. Maybe my Gen X parents kind of took that from their childhood, because I know they didn't have much even where they grew up as well. So it's like yeah, I'm very familiar with the you better finish the food on the plate. Like, and it's a habit that I've kept to this day. Like when I eat food, and especially this is the problem when I went to the US with the portion sizes being like 10 times the size of the UK ones. Like I had it in my mind that I need to finish these portions, even though I later on realized that, you know, they don't expect you to. You can just take it home, which is also fine. I was literally struggling to finish every meal that I tried to eat until I was told, okay, listen, you finish that, you might get sick. You need to take that stuff home. And at least I did that, you know. But yeah, it's just something that I've kept with me from a young age. And I like every time I see like people who just don't, like, they'll have food that they order and they don't even eat half of it and they like leave it. Oh, that kind of grates on me. Like, it's like I don't mean to judge, like who they might have been full, or, you know, they're not used to like finishing their food and they don't mind it. I mean, who am I to say what you do with your money? But it's to say, yeah, if I'm serving food, or if someone's giving me food to eat, I'm only gonna eat what I know I can finish. And if I can't finish it, then I'm taking it home and finishing it later. Other than that, I can't waste food. I just can't do it. It's just a habit that I have now. And I'm actually kind of happy I have it, because, yeah, a lot of food goes to waste.
Africa. Looking back, sometimes flavor was secondary to survival, and that meant nothing went to waste.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that one.
Fashion mattered in the 1980s, and jeans said a lot about where you stood. If you had Levi's or Guess, you were lucky.
Okay.
And if you had the stiff denim jeans from Kmart or JCPenney, everyone knew it too. The fit wasn't the same, the stitching looked off, and they didn't have the cool logo patches in the right spots.
Serious.
To make things worse, hand-me-downs were common. So not only did you not get the brand you wanted, you didn't even get to pick the style. In a decade obsessed with labels, those discount store jeans made your financial standing pretty clear.
Yeah, you can't really hide that one as well, it's obvious.
Eating out was rare, but when it happened, nothing went to waste. Did you have parents that saved the napkins, straws, and ketchup packets to reuse later?
Serious.
The kitchen drawer became a jumble of fast food extras that were used like the real thing. Instead of a bottle of Heinz on the table, you squeezed out packets one by one. For many families, this was just another way they stretched every dollar.
Do you know, it gets like that sometimes. I've even done that. My parents have done that.
Getting free lunch at school felt like a blessing and a curse. It guaranteed you a hot meal every single school day, but it also meant standing in a separate line or flashing a special ticket that let everyone know your parents didn't make much money.
That's brutal.
The stigma was heavy, with kids teasing each other about it, but at least you still ate, because it was one less thing for your parents to have to worry about. You never got over the embarrassment, but it faded a bit when you realized hunger was a lot worse.
No, that's deep. Yeah, being that kid in that line. Oh, yeah, that's deep. And the fact that they have two separate lines as well. I feel like school should just know that dynamic is going to be, like, tough. But I guess they kind of just get you to go through it. Because I had this same thing when I was growing up. Yeah, I forgot that. Even I'm remembering it now. There was, like, you would know which kids. Because there was foods that there was, like, a separate options for people who didn't have, like, their parents give them allowance. So you would know which kids didn't have to eat the school meals. So yeah, and you know when you're kids as well, even when I was a kid, it's like people say stuff. Obviously you don't know any better, but it's not nice.
Faded a bit when you realized hunger was a lot worse.
Yeah, mad.
The Nintendo Entertainment System was the hot ticket by 1986, and if you didn't have one, it showed. While friends were playing Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, you were still plugging in Pitfall or Asteroids on an old Atari. The graphics were boring, the controllers were stiff and usually missing parts, and to make it even worse, nobody wanted to come over and play anymore. But if that's what you had, that's what you played. And if you didn't like it, you could always go outside and play there.
Serious, man.
Growing up in a trailer park during the 1980s carried its own reputation. Kids from trailer parks often got teased at school, and trailer trash was a common name for kids who lived there. The lots were generally small, and the trailers were pretty run down, so kids would often be embarrassed to have friends over. So they just ended up hanging out with the other trailer park kids. But inside those narrow
Wow.
homes, families figured out ways to make do, from hand-me-down furniture to cheap meals and few extras. It wasn't glamorous, but it was still home.
Trailer trash is horrible, by the way. Like,
Recollection Road and
that's
Legacy.
such a horrible name. I'm sorry as anybody who grew up being called that. But at the end of it, at the same time, you know, I'm talking about the generation that is like very just headstrong in that sense. Like, you kind of just suck it up and deal with it. You know, we are talking about a different generation of kids. I feel like nowadays there's similar things. People take it more seriously. You know, you're reporting it. Like, if that's happening now, like, we're reporting it to the higher ups. Like, you know, the head teachers, we don't have to go to the head teacher's office or the dean's office. Like, we're escalating it quickly. But back then, I can imagine a lot of things got brushed under the carpet because you're not taking it seriously. But then, if you don't deal with it, you know, that kind of stuff can come back to haunt you later on, you know. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? But listen, guys, that's the end of this one. Shout out to Recollection Road for another nostalgic throwback. Look, I would love to know how this one resonated with you guys. This was some hard-hitting stuff in this, and it was eye-opener for me especially. Maybe for a lot of you guys watching, you know, you didn't even realize that your parents weren't as well off because they tried their best to just not even, like, just make the most of what they had, so you didn't even notice. You know, or maybe you're one of those kids that didn't really care. Like, you know, you were just like, oh, I don't have it. And you just were just strong like that. You just didn't let it get to you. I'd love to know, yeah, like, literally, you know, if any of you guys can relate to any of these things. Like, if you could, if any of the things that popped up were literally what you did, let me know. Let me know. Because even I could relate to a few of those things, you know. So it's interesting. It's interesting to look at what was going on back in the day. Yeah, this was definitely an eye-opener. But guys, look, that's my reaction to this. Comment down a green heart or hashtag flexer so I know who my real ones are. I made this point in the video. Of course, if you want to see me check out some more 80s related or 70s related content, I've got a bunch of videos that'll pop up at the end of this one. Look, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe channel, and if you want to get that bonus nostalgic content, movie reactions, sitcom reactions, as well as my music reactions will be on the Patreon. Link in the description. Check it out. See what I've reacted to. And yeah, guys, look, with that being said, I'm your boy JayFlex, and I'll see you wonderful people in the next one. Peace.